Okay, thank you very much for George's invitation. It's my great honor to give a talk in dynamic games and application seminar today. Uh, I'm Key. I'm now works at Nanjing University of Information Science and Technology in China. Today my uh, presentation topic is assessing the impact of carbon quota allocation on emission reduction and advertising efforts in supply chain. So I will introduce my topic from the following accepted. The first, I will start with the motivation of this study. As we know, the impact of escalating environmental situation is becoming more evident with each passing decades. And now we are at a very critical point in the climate crisis, with carbon dioxide levels reaching a varying 420 part per billion, part per million in 2023. Actually, since the year 2000, there has been a 62% increase in compound disasters, including storms, floods, and droughts since 2000. Also, according to the data from World Meteorological Organization in 2023, the economic costs of climate change are also accelerating. Over the past decades, global temperature have risen by 1.2 centigrade, leading to an estimated $218 billion every year in economic damages. Also, as reported by International Energy Agency and Environmental Protection Agency, the main sources of emissions comes from different industries. For example, the industrial combustion accounts for 41%. The energy production contributes 35%, and transportation makes up 23%. So to address this crisis, the policymakers around the world must have to balance the economic efficiency and environmental certainty. So the main carbon reduction policies in use today can be grouped into 4 types, and each of them have its own strengths and weaknesses. So we do some surveys by the literatures. We can compare them in this figure. So first, the carbon tax, which is positioned on the right side of the chart. It offers price certainty by establishing a clear tax per unit of carbon emitted. However, it doesn't guarantee a specific reduction in emission for sure. It leaves the environmental outcome somewhat uncertain. And compared with carbon taxes, subsidies have lower economic efficiency and higher fiscal cost. While they can encourage low carbon investments, their effectiveness in reducing the emissions is generally lower compared to carbon taxes. On the other hand, we can see the cap and trade located on the top of the chart. It provides certain about the total amount of emissions. But government set the upper limit. I will introduce the definition of cap and trade in the following talk. For this policy, the government sets the upper limit and distribute the permits accordingly. While this ensures a defined environmental outcome, the prices of carbon remains uncertain because it is determined by market forces. Lastly, we can see in the middle is a hybrid system. normally it combines with the element of carbon tax and cap and trade. It offers a moderate performance in both economic efficiency and environmental certainty. But actually, in practice, when it set to use, it's more complicated. It's more complex to design and implement. So among these, the cap and trade or CATE system stands out due to its unique ability to balance the environmental certain and economic efficiency with market-driven price mechanism. So now let's take a closer look at how this system works and its implications for emission reductions. So on the left, we can see the concept of emission cap. So this cap sets an upper limit of total greenhouse gases for a sector, organizations, or region over a defined time period. And it's usually determined by government or through international agreement. And this cap ensures that emissions stay within environmentally acceptable levels. And on the right, we have the trading quotas. It's also known as emission allowance. In this system, each of the quotas permits a certain amount of emission, and firms that emit less than their allowance can sell their extra quotas to others. So this creates a market for carbon and provide a financial incentive for firms to reduce their emissions. So actually, in essence, the cap ensures the environmental integrity, while the trading brings the flexibility and the cost efficiency into the system. So moving on how carbon quotas are allocated, it is crucial to consider the allocation method, as this decision significantly impacts the effectiveness of this cap system. In practice, there are two main ways to allocate carbon quotas. That is the free allocation and auction allocation. And each of them also has its own strengths and weakness. So we can see for the free allocation, it aims to mitigate carbon leakage risks and lower compliance costs for business. But however, it also involves a trade-off between equity and emission reduction efficiency. So while it can help reduce financial burdens, it may not always be the most effective method for driving significant emission reductions. On the other hand is auction allocation. It involves selling the quota through market bidding, which reflects the demand and generating competitive pricing. This method ensures the quotas are allocated to the highest value users. This method promotes the efficiency, but also introduces challenges such as price volatility and liquidity constraints. So especially for the small and medium-sized enterprises, which may struggle with financial burden of participating in auction allocation. So in practice, when the cap system is introduced, the free allocation is commonly used in the early stage. This is mainly due to its political feasibility and reduced financial pressure it places on the firm. Notably, within the free allocation, it also has two common methods for distributing allowances. We can compare, that is grandfathering allocation and benchmarking allocation. We can compare the advantage and weakness of these two free allocation based on this table. So for the grandfathering allocating, it allocates allowances based on historical emissions, which benefit incumbent companies, but also reducing incentives for emission reductions. So it tends to work well in stable industries, but is less efficient in achieving environmental goals. On the other hand, the benchmarking allocation, it allocates allowances based on sectoral emission intensity, offering dynamic incentives for emission cars and promoting fairness within industries. But it also faces challenges when applied to heterogeneous process across different sectors. So ultimately, the choice between this allocation method depends on the specific context, including the economic conditions and policy priorities of different countries and regions. So let's now explore how these approaches are applied in diverse global context. So for instance, the European emission trading system was established in 2005. It was the world's first multinational carbon market. And it began with phase one from 2005 to 2007, where free allocation was based on historical emissions, and progressed to phase two from 2008 and 2012, which partially included the aviation sector. In phase three from 2013 to 2020, the auction method was introduced with 100% of allowance for the power sector being auctioned, and sectoral benchmarks are applied. And similarly for Korea, its carbon market launched in 2015. It covers 68% of national emissions, and it initially used grandfathering for allowance allocation from 2015 to 2017, and greatly phased in more stricter benchmarks after 2018, except sectors like cement and oil refining. And moreover, in California's CATE program, it launched in 2013, and it's also linked with Quebec in 2015. It forms the largest carbon market in North America. And this program primarily uses benchmarking for industry and output based for electricity generations. And it covers 85% of state greenhouse gas emissions, including transport fuels, and has expanded since 2020. Meanwhile, in New Zealand, its emission trading system has been operational since 2008, and it has included forestry offsets from the start. It uses free allocation via benchmarking for trade-exposed sectors like steel and cement. While for agriculture, which began monthly reporting in 2022, and will start compliance from 2025. Okay, here let's turn our attention to China's carbon market, which has experienced a significant change and evolution over the past 3 years. In China, the carbon market began with pilot programs in 2011, and it covers 7 regions and cities. including Beijing, Shanghai, Tianjin, etc. And also in 2021, the national carbon market was officially launched. It initially covering 21 and 16 power plants, which equivalent to 4.5 billion tons carbon dioxide, and making it as the largest in the world by coverage. By 2025, China plans to expand the market to include additional industries like steel, cement, and chemicals. As the market evolves, so do the allocation method. So in the pilot programs, we have seen some changes in the approach to carbon quota allocations. For example, Shenzhen moved from benchmarking to grandfathering for public transport and utilities in 2021. And Beijing applied benchmarking to pumped storage power and the grid in 2022. So there are also still ongoing discussions about incorporating auction mechanism nowadays, but probably it will put it forward in the coming future. So as the carbon market continues to evolve, it is crucial to consider how various stakeholders within the supply chain contribute to meeting sustainability targets. And each step in the supply chain, for example, from the production to retail, also has a role in reducing emissions. And among these, the manufacturers is a key players for sure, because it drives the efficiency and the effectiveness of carbon market through their actions. So by participating in the CAT systems, the manufacturer can significantly reduce their carbon intensity, which in turn strengthens their green brand equity. So they also achieve this by implementing some internal carbon pricing systems, or process optimization, and even the strategic management of carbon allowance, while generating the credits through the circular production. Except the manufacturer, the retailer, on the other hand, while not directly involved in emission trading, but it also has a significant influences on sustainability as intermediaries between producers and consumers. So through, for example, through eco-labeling or product curation and even co-branding, the retailers can guide consumer choices towards eco-friendly options, like some initiatives like carbon neutral targets and carbon foot inventory forces offline, and even some financial incentives. So in summary, both the manufacturer and retailers in the suppliers, the manufacturers drive decarbonization through cleaner production and the generation of carbon credits. But the final steps, it lies with the retailer, and it plays a key role in turning the manufacturer's effort into consumers' action. Then create a green reputation that connect the industrial progress with sustainable consumption. For the green reputation of goodwill, we can also see a lot of good papers like George and Alina, our friends, they published together. So having explored the general roles of supply chain members in carbon market, we can take a look at how companies in specific industries are engaged in carbon trading and emission reductions. For example, in the food and beverage sector, companies like Danone and Walmart they approach carbon trading and emission reductions in unique ways. For example, the Danone tackles emissions directly by implementing dairy emission reduction protocols, issues sustainability-linked bonds for Scope 3 emissions, and participate in the California CAT program. For Walmart, meanwhile, it drives indirect reductions by enforcing Project Gigaton across its supply chain and using blockchain-based carbon smart tags for tracking. And this cooperation includes the label Mason certificate yogurt with carbon smart endorsement. So using also blockchain to highlight an 18% emission reduction and promoting low carbon products to shop consumers' preferences. So not only in the industry of food and beverage, also in the electronics industries. Companies like HP Inc. and Best Buy are also playing active roles in carbon reductions. For example, HP Inc. Participate in carbon trading by purchasing voluntary carbon offset to support its carbon neutral service contract and care packs and even products. On the other hand, Best Buy support carbon emission by favoring HP's carbon neutral product in its store, then promoting them through eco-tech labels and offers zero interest financing for Energy Star products. And carbon literacy workshops that have also engaged over 1 million participants in sustainability effort. So having explored how firms across sectors, now we shift our focus on the theoretical side. So to better understand the underlying mechanism behind the strategic decisions, especially in supply chains, we propose the following research questions. It's very straightforward. The first is how do carbon reduction effort, advertising investment, and profitability differ without a carbon quota allocation mechanism? And the second is how does the dynamic goodwill involve when different carbon quota allocation methods are applied? And the third research question is how does emission permit prices variations affect supply chain equilibrium across allocation method? And the last is what impacts do carbon quota size changes have on emission strategy and profitability? So finally, when it comes to models foundation, let's start with the interplay between the emission reduction effort and the advertising strategies and how they influence the evolution of goodwill dynamics. So emission reduction effort here is very clearly, and it represents a combination of some operational activities, such as the adoption of renewable materials, the integration of clean technologies, and the development of eco-friendly product. So this action contributes not only to lowering the emissions, but also to probably enhance the firm's green reputation, which feeds into the accumulation of goodwill over time. So turn to the advertising effort for the manufacturer and the retailer. They adopt different roles. For manufacturers, it primarily focuses on the long-term brand image. equity, such as emphasizing the carbon labels or recyclable packages. And in contrast, the retailers' advertisement targets short-term sales folks, like using promotional flyers, product placement, or brochures. And finally, all these efforts come with quadratic cost structure in a traditional form. And it means the more you invest, the more expensive it gets. And these cost efficiencies are all positive. Now let's see how this effort translate into goodwill over time. So here we adopt the Nilov arrow framework to model the goodwill dynamics. It's very obvious that in simple terms, the goodwill increases with positive effect of manufacturers' advertising efforts and the emission reduction impact, but decays if there is no continuous input. So this model starts with an initial goodwill, which is non-negative, and all of the parameters, I will not repeat it one by one, and all of the parameters are positive. So when we understand how goodwill involves time, so the question is, how does goodwill actually influence the market demand? So to answer that, we incorporate goodwill into our demand function. And in earlier models, the demand function is fairly straightforward. That is, a higher goodwill or advertising leads to higher demand. For example, here mu means the goodwill elasticity and eta is advertising effectiveness. But the reality we know is more complex, especially as consumers' attitude and the market dynamics continue to evolve. So we extend the multi-applicative model by adding a moderation mechanism where the retailers' advertising interacts with goodwill. So here, the square root of capital G reflects the diminishing returns of increasing goodwill. It means that as goodwill grows, its additional impact on demand become smaller over time. This is because as a company's reputation improves, each additional unit of goodwill contributes less to increasing demand. And the third term here captures how retailers' advertising interacts with goodwill to influence the demand. In this market, consumers' choices are not only affected by price, or also influenced by factors beyond price. It also includes the brand reputation, trust, and emotional connections. We can see some real-world examples. For example, in the fast-moving consumer goods, the emotional trust through advertising can create demand sparks. For example, the Coca-Cola's holiday advertisement driving seasonal demand to the hardest. Also in the technology sector, consider Apple, where early advertising effort during the product launches build strong goodwill. But once established, further advertisement yields smaller incremental gains in demand. When it comes to the quotas allocation design, the ground rules have the following steps. The first, to simplify the following comparisons, we here set the baseline intensity is sub 0 to 1. Think of this as a reference point that allows us to evaluate the relative emission changes, say reducing emissions by 20% or 15%, rather than focusing on absolute levels. So this normalization also facilitates some cross-sector benchmarking, such as comparing emissions in steel and textiles. By the way, it's also important to highlight here in our model, compliance obligations are only placed on the manufacturer because it controls production processes and emissions, which are directly regulated. And the retailer as intermediaries do not have a control over production-related environmental impacts. This aligns with some previous works, which focus on the manufacturer's role in meeting compliance obligations. And lastly, the unit permit price is determined by the market equivalent. It reflects the real-world carbon trading systems. Okay, additionally, we then explore two types of allocation method. Type 1 is actually is grandfathering based benchmark allocation. So here the manufacturers receive an absolute cap. We use E sub A to represent it. It's based on the historical emissions. Their actual emissions are given by the formula, for example, Mason capital E, which reflects the quantity of output, the production level, and the cleanness of the production. We use 1 minus capital E to represent. So if their emission fall below the cap, they generate a surplus they can sell. We use earning the revenue. We use R1 to denote. In the type 3, that is benchmarking based allocation. Here, the method, the manufacturer's emission reduction is compared to a sector-wide benchmark intensity. We use E sub B to represent. So if a manufacturer's actual emission intensity, that is 1 minus capital E, is lower than the benchmark, it earns the revenue to the output. The surplus is then tied to the manufacturer's output, capital D, and they earn the revenue. We can use R2 to represent it. So finally, we can get the objective functions here. And now we can see although we have introduced the regulatory scenario, but let's take a step back and examine the baseline case, that is a setting of no carbon trading scenarios. So in these scenarios, the manufacturer does not participate in the carbon market. There are no carbon permits and no compliance obligations. This provides a useful benchmark for understanding the strategic shifts on the regulations that we will compare later. Here we assume the sequential decision-making structure commonly observed in vertically organized supply chains. That is, the manufacturer actor first, meanwhile designing its emission efforts and advertising effort. Then the retailer, observing the manufacturer's actions, it chooses its own short-term advertising effort. This leader and follower dynamics allow us to capture the strategic interdependence in a real supply chain setting. So in this unregulated environment, both players aims to maximum their respective discounted profit over an infinite time horizon. For the manufacturer, its profit stream consists of marginal revenue from demand. Here, the marginal revenue we use as M to denote it. Here, it represents the marginal revenue from each unit of the market demand. It reflects how much revenue each player gains from simulating consumer demand. So for the retailer, the profit streams include very clearly only the marginal revenue from sales minus their own advertising cost. And building on this baseline case, we now introduce the carbon trading scenarios. It begins with the grandfathering allocation mechanism. And on this scheme, the emission quotas are granted to manufacturers based on historical emissions. So specifically, the total quota EA is determined by multing the average historical emissions over a references period. Here we can assume the period, the reference period from minus toy to 0. It means it could span 3 to 5 years over the historical data. So the root also we consider that this total quota EA is determined by the average historical emissions over the reference period by a policy coefficient psi. Here is the psi, which lies between 0 to 1. This psi here, we would like to represent the policy rigor. That is, the smaller it is, the tighter the emission cap. And the real-time emission is clear, like we were already introduced in the previous. So unlike the no carbon trading scenario here, the manufacturer's objective functions it can shows that it can sell surplus allowance if they emit less than the allocated quota. So this brings in an additional revenue term that is certain in this equation. And the retailer's profit remains unchanged compared to the no carbon trading cases, since they does not participate directly. And when it comes to the benchmarking allocation, quotas are allocated based on a sector-wide emission intensity. So it reflects the average emission per unit of the output. So this change, this shift focus from the past performance to the ongoing efficiency. So here, the manufacturer with actual intensity 1 minus capital A lower than this benchmark E sub B can earn the tradable supplies allowance. So the corresponding carbon trading revenue is calculated the per unit prices multiplied per unit of output and then scaled by the firm's production volume, capital D. And the retailer's behavior again remains unchanged. Finally, the equilibrium can be calculated directly. For the first scenario, the optimal emission level and advertising are influenced by some cost efficiency and along with the key coefficient x1 and x1. Similarly, the retailer's optimal advertising level depends on the marginal revenue and the strengthening of goodwill. So here we can see the important factor is in this scenario, the retailers' value functions are quadratic in capital G. This reflects the emission returns in their advertising, and it shapes the structure of its optimal strategy. And in the grandfathering scenario, the equilibrium results are more complicated. We can see for these three equilibrium are influenced by some key parameters like cost efficiency, advertising effectiveness, and goodwill for sure. And the market and for the manufacturer and the retailer, their value functions are quadratic in capital G, especially the manufacturer's function involving G square and the retailers being linear in capital G. And finally, the stability condition. You can see this expression. It ensures the equilibrium of feasibility and remaining non-negative to maintain the stability. Lastly, we can also see we now turn to the benchmark mechanism. The equilibrium also follows the same structure to the grandfathering scenarios, and the stability conditions in benchmarking cases mirrors the grandfathering scenario. It ensures the equilibrium by requiring non-negative. And when it comes to the dynamics of goodwill in the three scenarios, we can see some result here. For example, in the no carbon trading systems, the goodwill involves over time clearly and following an exponential decay. This system is stable as long as the decay rate delta is positive. It means goodwill will eventually stabilize. And in the goodwill dynamics, in the grandfathering dynamics, the goodwill involves more complicated with the stability depending on the certain conditions. If these conditions are met, the goodwill will stabilize over time, reflecting the dynamics of both advertising and the environmental factors influence the firm's reputation. Similarly, in the benchmarking scenarios, the goodwill follows the dynamic comparable to those in the grandfathering scenarios. Okay, once we have this identified equilibrium solutions, we can proceed to compare them across the different scenarios. Actually, we already see the equilibrium is a little bit complicated. So here, while it is possible to announce the equilibrium strategies for manufacturer and retailer in various settings, the complex of these strategies make direct comparison is more challenging. So when we do this, we also checked a lot of citations. We find a kind of approach as noted by Martin Aaron, right? She focuses on the stable equilibrium strategy. Is especially useful when planning spans and if infinite time horizon. So this is because once equilibrium is reached, the time taken to get there becomes negligible related to this related to the duration the system maintains its steady state value. So looking at the three policy scenarios, the comparison becomes clear. We can discuss with the data provided in the table. So under the no carbon trading system, it's clear there's no incentives for both the emission reduction and advertising. So it resolves the lowest levels of both. and the manufacturer have little motivation to improve and relying solely on general market demand. And grandfathering, it brings some improvement since it can earn revenue by staying below the historical emission limits. So they have some motivation to reduce emissions, and advertising also increases slightly. And benchmarking Séminaire performs the best as quota best as allocation quotas based on the industrial average, encourage firms to exist the benchmarking to gain benefit. Okay, next, not only do this, we want to do some sensitivity analysis to through the simulation to figure out some effect of key parameters. So in this section, we provide the parameter assignment used for the numerical simulations. For the best market size, the parameter is set to 10 to keep the analysis manageable. And both the manufacturers emission reduction and advertising cost efficient are set to 0.5 to reflect a focus on sustainability. And the retailer's cost is set to 0.3 to reflect the localized sales strategies. And I will not repeat all the others. And additionally, the unit emission permit price, PC, and carbon quota values are varied because we want to see these varying values will expose the impact on the carbon quotas. So here we can see the unit emission permit right here. We sent ranges from 0.01 to 0.1. Actually, we tried to create to find some citations of this parameter. Actually, we know the carbon pricing varies widely by different regions and countries. For example, as of April 2024, the average global carbon prices was $32 per ton of carbon dioxide equivalent, with Europe and Central Asia averaging $15 per ton of carbon dioxide equivalent. And in China, following the launch of the cat market, the carbon prices have risen from 17 yuan ton to 19 yuan per ton, with an average of 85 yuan per ton in the first half of 2024. So based on this, we established the range for carbon trading prices at ranges from 0.01 to 0.1. Okay, to better understand the effectiveness of different carbon quota allocation scenarios, we focus on the assessing profit improvement. As we know, the profitability is a key indicator of how well firms are adapting to and benefiting from these policies. So here we define a core metric called normalized profit growth, which measures the percentage change in profit for both manufacturer and retailers relative to their baseline scenario. That is no carbon trading scenarios. So this is calculated as the differences between the profit in a given scenarios. For example, grandfathering or benchmarking, and the no carbon trading scenarios divided by the no carbon trading profit. Based on this metric, we can figure out this figure on the right side. So the figure shows that both clearly the figure shows that both players shows positive profit benefit on the different policies. It indicated that the universal benefit across the board. Meanwhile, we can also further analyze the figure, use this table. It separated by carbon prices. So we can see when the price in the lowest value, that is 0.02, the grandfathering mechanism result in moderate gains. We can see the green section and the light blue sections. The grandfathering mechanism now result in moderate gains for manufacturer with relatively lower carbon quotas, while the retailer experienced higher gains, even surpassing the manufacturer in some cases. See the light blue section. When the prices increase to 0.04, the benchmarking begins to dominate benchmarking, leading to the more profit growth for both manufacturer and retailer. You can see the Z axis. And when the price increases to 0.06, the benchmark is strongly dominated with the manufacturers' profit higher than those of retailers. And the retailer shows slight sensitivity to the benchmarking mechanism, while its profit remain largely unchanged on the grandfathering scenarios. And finally, when the value reaches to 0.08, the benchmarking domain is at its peak. It's leading to the hardest gains for manufacturer across various carbon quotas, while the retailers experience minimal gains under still under the grandfathering manufacturer. When it comes to the two efforts enhancement, we also assess them using the normalized matrix relative to the non-carbon trading baseline. The result shows also consider gains on both grandfathering and benchmarking, and the benchmarking performs better. But one phenomenon here is this contrast with the profit growth result previously, where the grandfathering are more favorable in certain lower prices scenarios. And clearly, the higher carbon prices further increases the effort, particularly under the benchmarking mechanism. Lastly, in this numerical study, we also try to understand how goodwill involves on the different carbon policies. So we stimulate its evolutionary traces using two initial values. One is in a lower initial reputation, and another is and a higher one at 5. So this result also shows clear equivalent points that the no carbon trading is the affinity of goodwill stabilized at almost 2.2, and the grandfathering at 3.4, and benchmarking at 3.48. Indicates that benchmarking achieves the hardest long-term reputations. And secondly, we can see the goodwill dynamics follow convergence principles. That is, if the initial value is below the equilibrium, we can see the lower lines. If the initial value below the equilibrium, the goodwill will increase over time. and if it's above, it greatly decreases. And importantly, the ranking of these policies remains consistent regardless of the starting point. And in summary, we observe some different outcomes between these two policy mechanisms. First, although the grandfathering mechanism can boost the manufacturer's short-term profit by expanding total quotas, but it falls short in driving real low-carbon innovations. The reliance on past data tends to revert higher historical emissions and encourage output cuts rather than technological progress. So as a result, long-term sustainability is compromised. And in contrast, the benchmarking mechanism, it delivers both higher profitability and stronger incentives for firms to adopt the greener technologies, such as process optimization and renewable energy use. This structure promotes the scalable sustainability. And especially under the grandfathering benchmarking, the retailer may need to take a more active role in marketing eco-friendly product to offset the manufacturer's interiors. And on the benchmarking, however, the retailer benefit more directly through competitive pricing and closer collaboration. Building on this, we also find that the carbon market conditions, especially the per unit emission permit prices, it further influences this mechanism, and the success of benchmarking is not universal. Their feasibility depends on the specific economic and industrial context. So therefore, continuous marketing, monitoring, dynamic quota advertising, and the robust complex systems are essential to ensure fair profit allocation and prevent the inefficient behaviors, such as extensive production cuts on the grandfathering allocation system. Looking ahead, one promising extension is to incorporate some price elasticity into the model. This would help us to understand the nonlinear interactions between goodwill pricing and carbon related costs. And it also would be more important to consider the stakeholder effort, such as how consumers respond to the price on low carbon product, and provide a multidimensional interaction framework for analyzing the market behavior on the different mechanism. Okay, above is all. Thank you for your attention, and questions and comments are welcome.